Another very important area which comes in news every now and then is the National Green Tribunal. What are its functioning? Okay, see, National Green Tribunal comes always in news related to cases, environment, related to Supreme Court interfering. So this National Green Tribunal is a possible question for your prelims, your mains, as well as even you go for an interview also. This National Green Tribunal is very important. So, taking into account the increasing number of environmental cases across the country, the government of India enacted the National Green Tribunal Act in 2010 for the effective and expeditious disposal of cases related to environmental protection, conservation, clearances, etc. So, why it is in news is because the Supreme Court has recently criticized the NGT for frequently passing ex parte orders without hearing affected parties. For example, consider myself. I started an initiative related to environment, or I started an industry. Okay. So somebody went and complained against me in National Crime Tribunal that I'm doing bad things related to the environment and I'm polluting the environment. National Green Tribunal, without approaching me, without giving me a chance to explain what am I doing, imposes a heavy penalty of maybe 4 to 5 crores upon me. Okay, this will destroy the industries, manufacturing, business, etc. So that is ex parte orders. That means they are those that can be granted without waiting for a response from the other sides. Issues with ex parte orders include lack of fairness, potential of incorrect decisions due to one-sided information. For example, one person is going and complaining that they are polluting the environment. So without cross-checking, without knowing the substance you're finding out or giving out, you know, damages. That to see crores of rupees are being told as fines. So this is a reason why National Green Tribunal was in news very recently. The Supreme Court criticized them and told, do not do this. Okay. Now, what are the recommendations which were given by Supreme Court related to these things? Review of orders. The Supreme Court set aside one such order and instructed NG to reevaluate such cases by issuing notices to all the relevant parties, hearing their arguments, and then making a proper decision. It is not wrong you find somebody, but you should do that to a proper channel. That means they ask. So, such case which a person brought to the Supreme Court, they set it aside and told NGT to go back and evaluate all the cases in which such thing is done by the NGT. Maintain procedural integrity and balanced decision making and environmental safeguarding. Environmental safeguarding is very important, but you should have a procedural integrity to it as well as a balanced decision making in the environmental safeguarding. There is a need for NGT to ensure fair hearings and due process to maintain its credibility as a guardian of environmental protection. So if they to have that tag, or see, people's trust is extremely important, right? If people or person or business want to trust you, you should have a procedural integrity. For example, I am an aggrieved person. So when I go to the court, I have a feeling that the court is impartial and give me something called as a fair judgment. But if I know that even if whatever things, good things I do, when I go to the Supreme Court will support the other person, I will lose that trust. I will not consider that institute trust credible. So Supreme Court told NGT to maintain procedural integrity as well as a balanced decision making so that they will have a credibility as far as environment is concerned. Imposition of huge sums of damages proved to be counterproductive in safeguarding the environment. See, the amount generated to do this environmental conservation comes from taxes, etc., from this industry people. So when the industry's business do not function in India, there's a high chance there is no future to environmental protections. So that are some of the recommendations which were given by the Supreme Court of India. Now, what are the objectives mainly of the National Green Tribunal? To provide effective and expeditious disposal of cases related to environmental protection and conservation of forests, as well as other natural resources, including enforcement of any legal right related to the environment, giving relief and compensation for damage to persons and property and other related matters related to the environment. For example, industry started and it destroyed my property in one way or the other, and it is proven, compensation can be taken from those initiatives. So such is the main objectives of the National Green Tribunal. Now let's discuss the main area. It can be a possible prelims question, it can be a possible mains question, or they can ask you in an interview, what do you think about National Green Tribunal? What are the main powers? So you should be really thorough with it. Adjudication. It has the authority to hear and decide cases related to environmental protection, conservation of forest and other natural resources, and enforcement of any legal right related to the environment. So anything which is related to the environment, conservation, protection, etc., the NGT has the power to give judgments. And it has both civil and criminal jurisdiction with related to environmental violation and offenses. But you have to understand there are certain cases also where the applicability of laws are not there. Okay. Actually, if you see, NGT has jurisdiction on all civil cases under the Water Pollution Act, Water Prevention and Control of Cess Act, Air Prevention Act, Environmental Protection Act, Forest Conservation of Act, Public Liability Insurance Act, Biological Diversity Act. There are also certain acts in which the National Crime Tribunal do not have power. So that is a homework for you. Find out a very important act which the National Crime Tribunal do not have jurisdiction upon. It is a very important area, and you can expect a UPSC question for this. That is the homework for you guys. Then comes something called as the penalties for non-compliance. The NGT Act outlines penalties including imprisonment up to 3 years, fines up to 10 crore rupees or both based on violation of natures and citizens. So that is the main power or rather main resource which they give from their judgment. That means imprisonment up to 3 years or fine of up to 10 crores or both can be done for nature's violation, and depending upon how serious that crime is. Okay. Then they also have suo moto. That means they can initiate something by themselves itself. If they find with nobody is coming with any complaint to me, but the NGT is finding out that thing is destroying an environment over there, I can take a suo moto of case. So that is a unique thing comparing other others, courts, etc., which in which somebody have to approach them. A National Green Tribunal can take suo moto cases, okay, granting it the authority to take up environmental issues nationwide without awaiting specific case filings. Review of government judgments. It can review and challenge decision, acts, omissions of the government authority that have caused environment harm. And another important area which differentiates National Green Tribunal from other courts is it is not constrained by something called as the Code of Civil Procedure or CRPs or Evidence Act, etc. Rather, they focus on natural justice. That means it should be fair. It is like, for example, in a court of law, if you want to give some evidences, it has to satisfy certain strict standards that is mentioned in the Evidence Act. So such kind of things are not there in National Green Tribunal. It focuses on principles of natural justice, something called as due process in proceedings and rulings. Then comes composition of National Green Tribunal. It is headed by a chairperson who sits in the principal bench and at least 10 but not more than 20 judicial members, and at least 10 but not more than 20 expert members. They shall all know fees for 5 years and are not eligible for reappointment. Composition, there is a less chance of asking, but this is a very important power. This is a very important power, okay, which many institutions do not have. Okay, then moving forward, if you see the performance, and we will highlight some of the examples of that also. So the performance of National Green Tribunal, if you see, The first one is strengthening enforcement of forest laws. The NGT has been a staunch advocate for strict enforcement of forest law, particularly in the Forest Conservation Act of 1980. Example, if you see, in 2018, NGT ordered the closure of 248 illegal mining operations in Western Ghats, highlighting the tribunal's commitment to enforcing environmental regulation. In 2015, NGT cancelled the diversion of 20,000 hectares of forest land in Chhattisgarh for a mining project, citing irregularities in the clearing process. So they have worked or they have proven their strength in enforcement of many laws. And that is the examples which support it. It also promotes sustainable forest management. Sustainable means used in such a way that the present generation gets the benefit, but the needs of future generation is also not compromised. Okay. The tribunal has advocated for afforestation programs, conservation of biodiversity, and ecological restoration of degraded forest. Examples, if you see, the NGT has directed the Forest Department of Uttarakhand to implement a comprehensive afforestation program aiming to restore around 1 lakh hectares of degraded forest land. So they proven their mettle in the enforcement of forest laws. They have also focused on forest management by compelling different states to do something called as afforestation. So these are some of the powers which very few institution has. Okay. Then protecting wildlife habitats. The NGT has recognized the importance of protecting wildlife habitat to safeguard endangered species and maintaining ecological balance. Because see, many of the animals they are hunted for their food, hunted for food, their fat, their nails, scales, etc. Ivory of lion, ivory for elephant, etc. For example, to support protecting wildlife habitats also, in 2019, the NGT directed the Karnataka government to relocate a proposed highway project to avoid disrupting a critical wildlife corridor in the Western Ghats. Okay, especially there are rare instances in which the highways comes around something called as the elephant passageways, etc. So that will critically destroy their areas, because you have to understand animals such as elephant, they living in one area, they have to cross some area, for example, to get water, etc. So if a road comes in between it, it can frequently collide with the interest of animals, so such can be negated. So in protecting wildlife also, see, you have to understand, for a government to relocate a highway, it's a very important thing. Then enhancing public participation. The tribunal has encouraged individuals and communities to voice their concerns and participate in environmental impact assessment. This has increased transparency and accountability in the forest management practices. In 2020, the NGT has held a public hearing to gather feedback from local communities on a proposed hydroelectric project in Arunachal Pradesh. By this, the Green Tribunal will understand the pulse of what is happening there when people give their feedback, so that they can come up with an authoritative judgment. So these are some of the areas in which the National Green Tribunal has proved, you can say, it has proved its mettle. Okay, now moving forward, it has also focused on promoting environmental justice, addressed issues of environmental injustice through ensuring forest conservation efforts do not disproportionately impact marginalized. In 2021, NGT order on rights of bunny pastorals in its pristine bunny grassland. Sometimes in the forest conservation process, what happens, there will be some communities which we living in. For example, you are coming up with new national park, new wildlife sanctuaries. Okay, then there are certain things which are limited to that areas. Just imagine some people are already living there, getting benefits from the, or they will be basically living with what they get from those forest areas. So when a national park or wildlife sanctuary comes, it will be their interest that is directly compromised. So that is one thing which should not be done. Right? So such kind of thing, that is Banni pastoralists in the pristine Banni, when that was protected, the rights of these people were curtailed. But that should not be done. So the you can say NGT also focus on promoting that also. Then comes speedy disposal. In several instances, it has succeeded in delivering relatively quick judgments, ensuring that environmental concerns are addressed promptly. This is an advantage because they are not following the CRPC or IPC or the Evidence Act, etc. They can come with speedy judgments. So, see, everything has a flip point also. That is what the Supreme Court recently criticized. But still, a speedy disposal is very much needed as far as the environment is concerned. From July 2018 to July 23, NGT has received around 15,000 new cases and disposed of around 16,000. That means pending cases plus new case around 16. That is more than what we got. Public interest litigation. It also allows public interest litigation, enabling concerned citizens and environmental activities raise crucial awareness. See, there is an instance in which many a time when you have to file a case, you have to be aggrieved person or you have to be the close relative of an aggrieved person. In a public interest litigation, the thing is that if you feel something is largely affecting the public at large, you can raise a complaint. So that is public interest litigation. That is also being favored by the NGTA. So it is trying to be maximum inclusive as possible. So these were some of the areas in which NGT was powerful. So you have to understand no institution is completely supreme in itself. There will be challenges, there will be shortcomings. So what are the challenges before the National Green Tribunal? Staffing and infrastructure issues. The NGT has faced challenges related to staffing and infrastructure, resignations by key members due to inadequate facility from Supreme Court in version 2012, urgenting the Ministry of Environment to provide essential resources. Even though such a ministry, such an institution is being set up, when these go against the government judgment, government projects, etc. There is instances in which government do not support. For example, they can delay the payments, delay the fund, delay the appointments, etc. So if a person properly not compensated, that person has a high tendency to move to other realms. So such staffing and infrastructure issues, when came, many people started to resign. Then the Supreme Court intervened. Inadequate member appointments. Despite the NGT mandating a minimum of 10 judicial and 10 expert members, it has consistently operated with fewer members. Zonal benches due to shortage of members. All four zonal benches have been non-operational for over a year. Video conference hearings have become the norm, causing inconvenience and financial burden for lawyers as well as clients. See, in rural areas, you have to understand people will not be having the technology to have a video conference, etc. There will be no internet connectivity itself some on areas, especially we move to northeast, interiors of Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, etc. Delays and cancellations. Video conference hearings often face delays and last minute cancellation leading to inefficiencies. For example, what if there is no power? What happens when there is no power? There are towns and areas where there is no proper internet connectivity, not proper electricity penetration. Lack of diverse expertise. The NGT lacks a diverse pool of expert members. We have seen we are working with a short staff. So as the work is less or the staffs are less, it will impact all the areas of working. Appeals and enforcement challenges. NGT decisions face Supreme Court challenges with hefty penalties, weak enforcement orders, including gang and pollution cases. So many times people take the cases of NGT to Supreme Court, and once it reaches Supreme Court, the appeal system, the less speed of movement can really affect National Green Tribunal. Okay. Now, what are the way forward or how we can enhance the National Green Tribunal and its functioning? First and foremost is jurisdictional reforms. The Wildlife Protection Act of 1972 And scheduled tribes and other traditional dwellers forest act have been kept out of NG's. This was the homework which I gave you. So this is very important two acts which are kept away from. And many of the time conflicts, challenges, etc. happen through these two acts. So these being kept out of National Green Tribunal, people cannot approach the NGT for these cases. So these should be brought to NGT to have a holistic coverage of all the realms of national, environment related to the institutional capacity, proper appointments so that 20 efficient members are there. If the numbers are effective, quick judgments will be there. There will not be delays. There will be proper zonal councils also related to it to effectively handle the growing volume of environmental cases. The NGT benches should be expanded to include additional judges and newer locations and provided needed specified staff and infrastructure. Infrastructure is extremely important. For example, just assume you are an officer. When you go to that judgment area, you will not be having a house, you will not be having a place to sit, no electricity, no water, etc. Will you be able to work there properly? No. So proper staff is needed. Equally important, proper infrastructure for that to function. Then the focus should be on data-driven decision making. Embracing data analytics and GIS-based tools can provide valuable insights for informed forest management decision. This is something which is lacking in India. Many a time the data which we get will be at the end of a project and that will lie there as such. That will not be used when a new initiative comes. Okay, they again have to go to find data. Rather than keeping this data repository and working on that is extremely important. Okay, so the data driven, based on data, you have to understand which are the areas which causes problems, which are the area new cases come. Based on that, decision should be taken. Another very important thing is community engagement services. Engaging communities in forest conservation activities such as tree planting campaigns, biodiversity surveys, environmental education can strengthen local ownership as well as their participation in forest management, as well as we will get the confidence of that people also. And also they have to align this with the global conservation goals. The NGT's influence should align national forest conservation policies and global goals such as the HE biodiversity targets, sustainable development goals, fostering international collaboration. So these are certain areas in which NGT can integrate with what is happening in and around the best practices which are followed. What are the international targets? You can align all that with themselves and work forward. Okay, and another important thing is that they have to put, see, with power comes responsibility, and with more power also has a tendency for corruption. So they have to put internal checks and balances for efficient transparency, efficient and transparent delivery of justice. So that is one area which is focused. That is why giving hasty decisions does not have the confidence. It can affect the country in total, country's development in total, country's relationship with foreign countries in jeopardy. So those are some of the areas which we should focus. Okay.